Good evening. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Biddulph Town Council Plan Committee on Tuesday the 17th of February. Before we start with the meeting, I'd like to read the official disclaimer. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, should involve more of our community and local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddulph Town Council. Please read the guidance in recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. So, thank you. Welcome everyone, and welcome to those viewing us on YouTube. So, starting with the agenda, item 61, apologies and approvals of the substitute members. Do we have any apologies, Chief Officer?
No apologies and no substitute members.
Wonderful. Okay, item 62, declarations of interest, disclosable pecuniary interests and dispensations. At this point, I will potentially have a disclosable interest in an item on the agenda as chair of Moor First, chair of government of Moor First School. The development of housing in the village may have an impact that would impact the city. So we'll discuss that in more detail. Anyone else have any other interests? No? Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to the minutes of Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday the 20th of January. These went to the Town Council meeting last week. Are we all happy just to accept them as accurate to the meeting? Can I have someone to propose that, please? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Seconder, Councillor Rogers. Show of hands, please. Okay, thank you. Talk amongst yourselves while we initial these off. So, moving on to item 64, standing agenda item, consider any proposed sites for local listing. Do we have any further sites for local listing? Officer, anything?
No, nothing for me.
Okay, right. I was present at the heritage meeting at SMDC earlier in the month, at which the sites were put forward by this town council had all been previously approved. The only outstanding one was the butcher's shop at the top corner. They requested further pictures of that from an earlier date to show some of the architectural features. We now have those pictures, which will be forwarding to them, so hopefully that will go through as well at the next heritage meeting. Moving on, item 65, to consider a response to the leak Neighbourhood Plan Regulation 14 consultation. The documents have been provided. So, this was part of your pack. Chief Officer, do you need to add anything to this?
No, I believe we're a consultee, so that's why it's been sent to us. So you can raise any issues if you have any.
I can. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I mean, as far as their neighbourhood plan's concerned, I've had a look through the policies. None of them affect Biddulph, and the policy that they got all seem quite reasonable. All I can sort of say is wish them good luck with it and let them get on with it. Because as I say, I don't think well, I'm pretty certain it doesn't affect us in any way whatsoever. There are things in there that I would have liked to have included in ours had we been doing it later. But given the consideration that had we tried to go back and include those sort of things, we'd have to go back to square one. So that was really, so as far as I can see, good luck to them. Yeah.
Thank you. That would have been my assessment as well, having a look through it. There's nothing there that directly impacts or disadvantages Biddulph in any way. And therefore, I think as a consultee, quite happy to say good luck with it. Hope it all goes well for you. Anyone else have any comments want to make on the leak Neighbourhood Plan? Councillor Jones?
Just note as received, Chair, that's all we can do.
Okay, right. We're all happy just that we note that it's received. I don't think there's a requirement on us to make a response. Okay, is there anything we want to say, sir? Right, thank you very much. Okay, no, that's received. Do we need to take both of that? No. Okay, right. So Councillor Jones has proposed that we note the document. Have a second for that? Councillor Hawley. Can I show of hands, please? Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the main substance of the meeting. This month's planning applications. Starting with potentially the most controversial. This is an application SMDC 2025-0537. This was referenced at the end of the last planning meeting with a note to everyone to go away and read the documentation that had been provided in advance of this meeting, so everyone's aware of what is being presented. It's permission in principle for the construction of up to 9 homes on a piece of land between Hot Lane and Rudyard Road, running adjacent to the Parklands cul-de-sac. So it is permission in principle for 9 dwellings on greenbelt land adjacent to the Parklands. There are no details of the properties to be constructed. The principal supporting statement in the let's find the appropriate document. Okay, in the document they presented was making a statement that the land, greenbelt land, should actually be designated as grey belt under the latest version of the NPPF guidelines, stating that it doesn't meet 3 of the 4 requirements, or 4 of the 5 requirements of greenbelt land, in that it does not check the unrestricted sprawl of large built-up areas. It doesn't prevent neighbourhood towns from merging into one another, and it doesn't preserve the setting and special character historic towns. They're stating that the development would not fundamentally undermine the purposes of the remaining greenbelt across the area. Also stating that because the council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing, there is a demonstrable unmet need for this type of development proposed. They're invoking the tilted balance on this, and the development work would be in a sustainable location according to paragraphs 110 and 115 of the framework. There is no planning policy, no neighbourhood plan policies that we can relate to it because there are no details at all of the development. As I say, it's difficult to make a judgment on this because there's absolutely no details. It's just an application in principle. Since the last meeting, I can make some additional comments on that. There have so far been 40 objections from residents. There are multiple objections from the same resident, but there are 40 different residents objecting. There's one comment that's unreadable, so we can't access that. The majority of the objections relate to the fact that it's greenbelt land, challenging the grey belt definition, congestion on the roads and highway safety, basically specifically that Hot Lane is unsuitable and narrow and the Rudyard Road is heavily congested. I think those of us who live in the village will know the parking issues on Rudyard Road are well known. Also stating flooding, a history of the site being waterlogged, and also there being flooding issues on the adjacent parklands. Impact on protected species, specifying bats and owls in the area. Also significant impact on a local community asset. There are concerns that the village hall being adjacent to the site may come under threat from people who are unfamiliar with the area moving in. I think you may have seen that in the local press. There's also a statement that preparatory work for the access road has already been done, which is in contravention of the planning regulations. And finally, the same problem we have, a lack of detailed information on the application, details of the site access, layout and types of properties. There are also comments from the highways team, conditional statement detailing the requirements for access, displays, layout, paths, roads, drainage, etc. being required. There's a standard response from United Utilities highlighting the need for sustainable drainage and plans prior to commencing any work. And there are 3 comments from various footpath authorities stating that footpath 120 should be protected throughout the building. At this moment in time, there is no formal recommendation to go from here other than we've called it into the planning committee as it's a significant local interest, and defer the planning for it to the planning officers for compliance with the greenbelt regulations, but in front of the SMDC planning committee. Now I had a series of hands went up. I think I had Councillor Jones, Councillor Smith, Councillor Hawley, and did you have your hand up, Councillor Yates?
No.
Okay, fine. In that case, we'll work across that way from the top with the 4 councillors first. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I suspect Councillor Hall is going to give you a lot more detail than I do. I'm going to give you, but a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago now, we spent a hell of a long time putting together a local plan for Leek and for Biddulph specifically. I time on that, and the upshot of that was that we weren't even having any infill, which I didn't propose. But certainly there was a proposal as part of that invent to put 48 houses on this field. And I just see this as an attempt to get the thin end of the wedge in with 9. Say hello. We'll have an ice cream back up again. And I just feel that this is a cynical attempt to do that. And once these 9, if these 9 get approved, then before you know it, there'll be 50 houses on that field. Now, you mentioned Greenbelt, and you know, if it was Greenbelt 3 or 4 years ago, it's still Greenbelt now. And the fact that Angela Rain has declared these areas that were Greenbelt to Grey-belt is just outrageous. Greenbelt determination needs to be decided by the local authority after consultation and investigation and all the rest of it. I think Councillor Hall is probably going into that a bit more than me. You can't just say that's now Grey-belt. But really, that's the only objection. That's the only valid objection that we can make, is that it's Greenbelt. And I'm afraid I sympathise with the objectors, but to cite sort of highways and access and egress issues when we don't know what the access and egress is going to be, a lot of people are assuming it's going to be access from Hot Lane, and logic says to me it should be access from the other end, not from Hot Lane. But my position is that I oppose it wholeheartedly anyway. But there is insufficient impact. There's no sustainable drainage, you're right, and there's this significant impact on local wildlife and habitat. We are a rural village. We're a large village, but we are a rural village, and it does check sprawl. What's happening if we're not taking the boundary of the village and then extending it by another 500 yards? That's sprawl. That's urban sprawl. I know it's not connecting us with another community, but if this will be the thin end of the wedge, and before you know it, we'll be up to Top Road on the eastern side, and probably down to Pennine Way on the western side. So it's got to be opposed, and I've called it into committee at Leek, as you know, and I'll just say what I'm saying today at Leek as and when it comes up at Leek. So I'm wholeheartedly against this, and I know we can't refuse it as such. I say that many times, but if I've got to put it, I would have proposed that we recommend wholehearted opposition to this for the reasons I've outlined. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor James. Do you have something new to add on to that one?
Yeah, no, sort of add on to a bit to what you were saying about the objections. I mean, potentially sort of things that identified were on site usage. I mean, apparently the land is actually used as grazing land. There's also used as a helicopter landing site as well. The local infrastructure, potentially on the basis of that, it's unsustainable. I mean, in terms of what we've got. The sewage system in the area is up to capacity. We've got limited public transport. I mean, obviously there you sort of say, no, we've got the 93 bus. But at the moment, yes, we have. How long that's going to last, we don't know. The planning statement says that Rudyard Road is lightly trafficked. That is untrue. You don't go up there at sort of in the morning and in an evening. It's like a sort of racetrack. There's the impact on biodiversity. It's not required to basically fulfil Biddulph Moor's housing needs. There's empty properties on Biddulph Moor, and there's quite a lot of properties up for sale. So it doesn't meet that one. There's concerns about the electrical infrastructure in the area. There's the increase and the risk of flooding, and it is an area that does flood around that area of Parklands. The local plan review is required to alter the green belt. That's not been done. There's no layout plan, so it's vague on what they're actually intending to build on there. The loss of agricultural land, as I've previously said, it's used for grazing, and there's the threat to the village hall activities as well. And in terms of, you were saying about the neighbourhood plan, as far as I can see, it's got an impact on any one, which effectively is the natural environment features, because it's going to have an impact on rural character, the ecological and the environmental issues, and also INF2, which is sustainable drainage. and there's concern over the features of that with the drainage. Now, as far as grey belt's concerned, as I've just said, basically it is up to the district council to review green belt and identify what is grey belt. That as yet has not been done. And as far as I can see, they are taking a bit of a flyer here. And, you know, you've got to be sort of looking at what the grey belt is and effectively, is it sustainable? And we sort of look, is it connected to transport and amenities? And it's not really. It's farmland. And one of the other things is Biddulph crying out for new houses? And the answer to that is no. So in terms of those sort of ideas, it is not grey belt, which is the sort of things they are trying to identify. As I say, one of the things I was looking at, and it basically said, not all grey belt land is fair game for development, and says, be it in a sustainable location? And I'm not sure that it is. Potentially, given the fact that we've got one shop up there, we've basically got very little in terms of public transport, and again, it doesn't meet the unmet housing needs because, as I say, Biddulph Moor is quite happily. We've got houses for sale, we've got empty houses on there, and so there is nothing there to sort of say it is grey belt. So I would go along with. Oh, and the other thing was that you've got BNG application. You said you've got no, and I think it does need a BNG. Jude.
I believe that there are a number of flaws in the application. I believe that you are correct in that it is a speculative application in light of the proposed changes to the new changes to the NPPF. And there are a number of neighbourhood plan policies that might be impacted, but without the detail of the plan, we can't be sure one way or the other.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, I'm sort of looking at potentially 2 that are impacted by the fact that you're going to build on it.
There are potentially 7 that I think could
that might be affected.
Identified, but without the detail of the of a firm plan, then it's very much up in the air.
Those are the 2 that I said would be affected with what they're actually putting forward now. So in terms of what Councillor Jones said, I would recommend that we should ask council to refuse this.
Thank you, Councillor Hawley. Councillor Smith.
I think what we're potentially looking at here is someone applying for outline planning application on a plot of land with the intention to sell it to a developer
You might think that we couldn't possibly comment.
Couldn't possibly comment on that, but like you say, without any detail about what sort of housing development it would be, whether it would fulfil our housing need at all, because there is a reason there are a lot of empty houses in Biddulph Moor. That's because they're pretty much bungalows, or if they're family houses, people are outpriced. There aren't any affordable houses in Biddulph Moor for new families of a modest income to move into potentially. So I think there's a lot of valid things that have been brought up in the public comments, but there's also a lot of things that aren't valid planning objections. And I think the idea of calling it in and having that discussion with the officers at SMDC is potentially the right thing to do, because as a consultee, without anything to comment on, we haven't really got anything, any comments to pass on other than it needs to be discussed in more depth.
Okay, thank you. Hence the recommendation to 4 weeks with it. Right. Can I come back to you after I've spoken? Councillor Yates came in, and I'll come back to you after that, Councillor Hawley.
Yes, two things which I think are pretty important on either side of the debate on this. The one is grey belt. I can't understand how they designated what is, to me, very obvious, normal sort of farm pasture grazing land. There's grey belt, and I did have a quick look up, and I didn't have to go far. And my interpretation of grey belt is basically what's just popped up when I put a quick search in: low quality, neglected, or previously developed land. I don't think it meets those 2 priorities within protected greenbelt areas, often targeted for development to meet housing targets. Housing targets I'll come back to. Examples include disused car parks, petrol stations, and flat scrubland, as distinct from high quality protected greenbelt focusing on sustainable ugly sites. Now, you know, I look around and I see I can very much identify grey belt within what is green belt. And I think Biddulph suffered from not having a grey belt designation, to be perfectly honest. If we look at the old Victoria Colliery site and the Brownlees Colliery site, that's green belt. But I think every single person in Biddulph expected that to be developed when the colliery closed, because that's what's happened in sites elsewhere in North Staffordshire and beyond, because it's obviously previously developed land. However, it's green belt and therefore it's protected, and nothing happens to it. I think if the law was different, Biddulph would look a little bit different and a little bit sort of moving towards the south. I'm not, whatever.
Can you be specific?
I'm being specific to this because it comes on to the next point.
That would be helpful.
It would be helpful, yes. The problem is with Staffordshire Moorlands, the local plan, which was cobbled together, is barely deliverable. There are a multitude of sites on that local plan which have got real serious issues about deliverability, and it was basically what could be got through the council. As a consequence, Staffordshire Moorlands do not meet their 5-year housing supply target. Therefore, it is under pressure from speculative developments, which would ordinarily not get the time of day, because there's plenty of houses to be built elsewhere. There isn't plenty of houses to be built elsewhere on the Staffordshire Moorlands. The arguments which have just been put forward are arguments which is why we got the local plan we did, which would be put forward in any part of the Staffordshire Moorlands and considered reasonable and valid. But taken as a whole, we are not meeting our housing supply. The local plan is being reviewed in as much as we can with the timescale Staffordshire Moorlands gets left before we move on to the new authority. And in some respects, there's potential that the new authority could be the knight in shining armor, because there's more land available collectively to do it. So, I don't see it as grey belt, but I do see a problem with housing supply. So I am actually neutral on this because of it.
We have two difficulties here. One, it isn't by any sensible definition grey belt, but we can't make it out. Before I come back to the speakers for the second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak on this for the first time? Councillor Rogers, then I'll come back to Councillor Hawley.
I mean, it's just a suggestion that the residents want to have their own meeting and possibly the village hall, put their suggestions forward to the planning committee.
No, I'm not sure that that's anything that we have any control over.
I know we have.
Or would want to influence it anyway. Our job here is to determine whether we think
It's just a suggestion. No.
anything in relation to the Neighbourhood Plan or any legitimate planning concern. Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I'm just sort of making a point about basically on what Councillor Smith said. I mean, effectively, in terms of if they had to build on there, then I would say that they would have to build bungalows, because potentially everything that is in that area is a bungalow, and to stay in the same type of property, they'd have to build bungalows.
I think the
Because all parklands and all those along there coming up to it on Hot Lane are bungalows, and they would have to build bungalows.
Again, because there's no detail on here, we can't really judge that at all.
But
that comment has been made by one of the objectors that the houses on there, because they would overlook the parklands, need to be single story. So, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, well, I was going to pick up on that point. Well, we don't know. We don't know what's going to be proposed. If they be sensible to build bungalows here, I just pick up on Councillor Rogers' point. Having a public meeting is not the way to go. I've had contact with several of the objectors. I've not been lobbied, but I have had some dialogue with them, and I've suggested to them that if they want to come and speak at the meeting that they are at their liberty to do so. So that's in hand. Just to go on,
Can you make that as a statement then for the public who might be watching, that if they wish to object to this at the planning meeting at Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, they need to contact the district council to request to speak in objection to the planning proposal.
absolutely. They won't be able to do that until it's been designated on the agenda, which I'm expecting to be next week. But as you know, that agenda hasn't been issued yet. Just to pick up on the housing supply, Councillor Yates is right. I mean, with LGR, if we do end up merging with Stoke, there's flaming acres of land in Stoke-on-Trent, acres and acres and acres of brownfield sites where they demolished houses. So, let's build on the brownfield stuff first, shall we?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Right, so to clarify, the proposal is that being recommended. We have a proposal, I think, from Councillor Jones and seconded by Councillor Hawley, that we should recommend refusal on the grounds that we believe it is green belt and therefore it does not apply, but that has been called into the planning committee for a decision by the full planning committee with advice from the officers on the validity of the grey belt statement. Are we all happy with that? Okay. Just to clarify, I stated at the beginning that I have a potential interest in this because as chair of governors of Moor First School, if a large quantity of affordable young family housing was built, it would impact the school quite positively. I will, having spoken on this and agreeing that I too would generally refuse it on the grounds of greenbelt, I'm not going to vote on this, so I'll abstain from it. So can I have a show of hands for the proposal on the table from Councillor Jones? But any against? Abstentions? Myself and the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Okay, so that's going. So moving on. Well, that might be reasonably along the scope. Okay, so SMD 2026-0030. We have, and we also have 2026-0029. These are two applications for the same location. One is for listed building consent, and the other is for the conversion of a garage to living accommodation with a change of use for the stable building to incorporate, let's say, to incorporate the garage within that part of the building. So it's Mr. J. Foxall, the old engine house, Biddulph Road, Mount Cop. The statement as conversion of the garage as stated. There's been no pre-application advice. It's ground floor garage on the wing of existing grade 2 listed building to be converted to a ground floor living room with accessible bedroom with wet room. An alternative garage to be created by conversion of an existing detached storage, stable and barn and stables. The material changes are limited to the existing solid timber external doors being replaced with glazed timber doors. From the design access statement, there is no significant additional information beyond the statement to replace the doors. It is in the green belt. Just close that one now. So it is in the green belt. BNG is not applicable. The only potential neighbourhood plan policies that I think are impacted by this are DES 1 for design and DES 2 for the public realm car parking and movement. The DES 1, the design of the garage door replacement is out of character with the original design, I would suggest, but there are no details of, design of the garage door replacement is out of character in terms of its, I can find it. It's a big glass door like that. It doesn't match the other doors. However, there are similar windows on the site, but there are no details of the new garage provided. That's my only concern on it. As far as DES 2 car parking, public realm car parking and movement, it's a very large site. The barn adjacent has plenty of space, but there's no details provided of the conversion of the barn over here. So you can see it's a very large site. My recommendation on this one would be to send it through with no adverse comments. Request additional clarification of the garage design and parking. Refer the door design to the heritage officer regarding the listed building consent. So I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Hawley. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with your recommendation, Chair. I mean, if any green belt should be grey belt, then the area around that probably is, because it was, it was an industrial site for many years, and the fact that it's still green belt is that's one that could be legitimately classed as grey belt. I would just say that building was derelict and almost like the old hall. Actually, it was derelict and on point to collapse for many years. I don't know if it's the existing owners or whether it's been sold on, but whoever rescued it has passed it on. If it's not the same person, and anything they want to do to improve it, and it's not overlooked, it's not near to anything. There's a block of I think 4 or 5 houses, a couple hundred yards away to the east. It's on its own pretty much. So without any neighbours' valid concerns, I'd happily go with you and say NAC on it, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Hawley?
Yeah, I'm sure this has been through the old engine house several times, and I think
It's for its original conversion.
yeah, I think what they seem to be doing is a bit at a time. I keep on asking, and it basically every time it's gone through, and it's been okay. So I would go on with what you said, that no adverse comments on it. Basically, he's just improving it as he's going along, and good luck to him.
So this is my concern. This is the barn that they're showing details of, but they're not showing the existing barn. There's no details of what they're going to do with it. That was all. So that's all we were seeking clarification on. As I say, I think from Councillor Jones's point, we welcome the restoration of this, what was effectively a heritage asset, to bring it back into legitimate use rather than a derelict site. Do I have any others?
Just quickly, Chair, are we able to legitimately comment on 0030? Presumably that's listed building, that's safe.
But that's the heritage officer.
No, that's out of our control. So our comments and recommendation go on 29 basically.
Yes, essentially, that was a statement that essentially we should refer to the heritage officer regarding the listed building consent.
Yeah.
Because we can't make a judgment on that. That's very much a specialist endeavour. But no adverse comments, but the clarification on the proposed garage will be useful.
Really? Okay.
So, do I have any other speakers on that? Can I have a show? Sorry, Ken.
The only thing I will say is I raised an eyebrow when I saw the garage conversion. I think that's a different plot. There's plots. That plot was recently for sale. It did come for a planning application not so long ago, if my memory serves me right.
Let's have a
On the separate colour. So I would suspect that the actual garage part of the conversion is not covered by the listing of the actual building. If you see it, if you look,
it's the garage conversion, isn't it? It's the change of
yeah, I was
doors,
going to say,
the change of the doors that are listed building consent, because that's part of the listed building.
Yeah.
The barn's a separate structure.
which was in separate ownership. I'm pretty convinced
That's entirely possible.
boundary and the access.
We can check on the planning map if you want for previous applications.
No, it's all right.
Okay, fine. Okay, so any other speakers on this? So the proposal is for no adverse comments, subject to the clarification and reference to the heritage officer. Can I have a second for that, please? Councillor Hawley, can I show of hands, please? So recommendation is no adverse comments. Requesting additional clarification on the garage design and parking, and refer the listed building consent to the heritage officer. Okay, moving on.
Straightforward one.
Yeah, nice straightforward one. Okay, right. SMD 2026-0055, Mr. D. Hutchins, 16 Jubilee Close. This is proposed two-storey side extension. It's a no pre-application advice. It's the construction of a two-storey extension to an existing semi-detached property to provide additional living, shower and utility rooms on the ground floor and 2 additional rooms on the first floor. Only one of these 2 additional rooms upstairs is labelled as a bedroom. The other is a dressing room. I have some comments on that further down. Materials, the walls that are existing are red brown brick, and it's proposed to have chestnut WPC, whatever that might be, external wall cladding. The roof existing is Redland Renown. Roof tiles proposed is tiles to match. Windows and doors are proposed UPVC to match the existing. There are no other additional statements provided. The application here. Okay. This is the one. Yes, this is the one. Okay, so looking at the neighbourhood plan policies, the only ones impacted to my mind are sustainable drainage in 2, DES 1 design and DES 2 public realm car parking and movement, and I shall explain that in a moment. In 1, there are no details of sustainable drainage for the new extension, which is a considerable size. The drainage appears from the new extension appears to be going into the existing discharge points into the public system, which would not be a preferred solution as far as INF 2 sustainable drainage is concerned. There's 1, the cladding, I would suggest, is out of character. The rest of the properties on that road are all red brick, as is this house itself. So that is potentially out of character. While the existing porch does have some cladding on it, that is much less obtrusive than this large extension. Des 2, I have concerns regarding this, in that we have the bedroom and the dressing room upstairs. So two additional rooms, both are sufficient size, I would suggest, to be classified as bedrooms. That would then make this a 4-bedroom house, and it would be subject to the SMDC minimum 3 parking spaces defined within the curtilage, and the plans do not show that, and I don't think there is scope for that within the property. Therefore, my recommendation on this would be to refuse it and refer it to the planning officer for non-compliance with the neighbourhood plan policies, and recommend refusal essentially, unless they can show compliance with those policies. Anyone want to speak on this? I've got Councillor Hawley, Councillor Jones, and Councillor Smith. Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, I've got no problem with what they're trying to do, but as I say, that I think the finish or the cladding is going to make it look absolutely awful down there. So on that basis, that's a good reason to throw it out. And as you say, you picked up on the parking. So if he came back and sort of said, would just be red brick and be sufficient parking spaces, then fine. But as it stands, then I think you're quite right in saying we've got to throw it out. Basically, say recommend refusal for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It doesn't comply with various.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Councillor always said, going to say the only thing I would add is that I'm not keen on the way the roof's been dealt with either, quite honestly. Why on earth not run it through at the same pitch, at the same height?
I think
it looks so much better.
A standard design that's been applied in the past by the district council because of not making it clear that it is an extension rather than the existing property. But I think that's
It's purely an aesthetic a rejection that I've got to it, basically. And I'm not saying it's a valid reason. I'll just endorse what Councillor Hall said.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Smith, and I've got Councillor Yates as well want to speak.
Yeah, points have already been made about the cladding being out of character. It's personal taste, but it doesn't fit in with the surrounding areas. The only other thing that I would mention is, with it being on a corner, will it pose any obstruction for seeing? I know it's a cul-de-sac, but any obstruction in terms of visibility and things like that might be with.
I think the cul-de-sac actually comes. If you look at the
It's the corner one, right?
Yeah, so basically this is the cul-de-sac here, and the access into the back of the garage is here. Back of the property is there, so it's on the corner here. I don't think there's an issue there in terms of visibility. I think my concerns are essentially as I say, it definitely doesn't comply with DES 1. I think there's a subterfuge to, and it doesn't comply with DES 2, and there's no sufficient detail for us to say whether it doesn't comply with INF 2.
I think I would support recommending refusal on the grounds of streetscape and maintaining the aesthetic of the existing houses.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Yates, you wanted to make a comment as well?
Yeah, I think if any property on Jubilee Close could take an extension like this, this is the property. It's right at the end.
Yeah.
It's certainly not overlooked by anybody. It's quite a low elevation. The old doctor's surgery, which is the U3A now, and the old chemist and dentist is actually above, so it's not in a line of sight. I think there's far too much cladding. I think something which actually breaks the monotony of the of just red brick boxes sometimes gives things a little bit of character, but I think they've gone over the top, and I don't mind it step back. I think because it does drop, the elevation is quite a bit lower than the footpath, and because it's on a sweeping bend, I think they would have difficulty getting a drop curb off that to get extra car parking spacing in. But the principle of developing that end and that side seems quite valid to me. Looking at it on Google,
Yes.
On Google Maps street scene, it does look like some demolition works relatively recently undertaken.
It does look like the area's been cleared at the front.
And the site does need tidying up.
But that's just a wall taking down. So I think essentially all your points are valid there, but I think because of the significant deviation from what's specified in the our neighbourhood plan policies, I think the general consensus is that we should recommend refusal.
Well, I don't think we recommend anything, do we? I think we'll just make comments.
Log our concerns.
We have
Note our concerns, which
I think
by addressing.
because we are custodians of the neighbourhood plan, I think we're in a position where we're not the deciding authority. We're making suggestions via a recommendation of what our view would be, and our view is it doesn't comply with the neighbourhood plan policies as they currently are. I've proposed this. I think I've had a second from Councillor Hawley already. So does anyone else want to speak on this before we go for the vote? Okay, no, right, no, show of hands, please, for. Okay, thank you. I think that's everyone. Thank you. Right, so moving on. The next two were labelled originally as supplementaries because they came in after the normal deadline for sending out the paperwork, but they were included in the agenda. So we have two more applications, SMD 2026-0060.
I'll look to this.
This is Mr. and Mrs. Cotton of Raghall Farm, Biddulph Park Road, Biddulph. It's for the demolition of an agricultural building and the formation of a new vehicular access and driveway to serve new dwelling, which was permitted previously under application reference SMD 2023-0212. There was no pre-application advice. The details of a proposed new driveway. Find a picture. Right, this is the site. It's proposed new driveway. The demolition of this building here to service new dwelling that's been here, that's already been covered under it's already been granted planning permission. The route on this application is modified from an original route to address objections to a previous application which brought the driveway round here along the boundary before turning up to the property. The materials are the access will be tarmac with a transition strip of cobbles leading to a drive of crushed stone chippings with the timber edging. That again was to address concerns about sustainable drainage of the original tarmac drive, so it's now become crushed stone chippings. There's a detailed report to address the reasons for the previous refusal and demonstrate that the new plan complies with the local plan policies and the NPPF guidance. Additional supporting statements: there's an ecological impact assessment considering the assemblage of nesting birds, bats, both foraging and commuting, and hedgehog, plural of hedgehog, with actions recommended for all of those. A separate survey found that there were no roosting bats as opposed to the commuting bats, but reasonable avoidance measures were recommended for new exterior lighting to meet the appropriate guidelines. There's a biodiversity net gain assessment, which concludes a net gain of 14 to 15% for both habitat and hedgerow units. There's an arboriculture report which identifies trees and hedges that should be removed and mitigation measures are recommended. It is in the green belt. BNG is applicable, which we're complying with. I believe the neighbourhood plan policies that are impacted by this are the natural environment features and urban edge because of the boundary treatments and the hedging that's being put in place, and I believe it complies with those. Sustainable drainage has been addressed by having a porous drive for the vast majority of the driveway, so I think it complies with that. Those are the three that I believe are impacted. Comments on this would be the previous drive application 2025-0420 was refused on grounds of being not demonstrably required. This one doesn't appear to have come to the town council, so there were no town or parish comments recorded on the SMD website for that. I've checked through the records and I can't find this having come to us previously in 2025, so I'm uncertain as to how it got past us. As I say, the new plan reroutes the drive, shortens it and moves it away from the neighbour's boundary, increases the width of the entrance, changing, as I say, from tarmac to crushed stone to allow sustainable drainage. So I believe it complies, and my recommendation on this form would be just to send it through with no adverse comments, but recommending that all the recommendations of the ecological and wildlife surveys be implemented along with all the BNG enhancements, and subject to it complying with the Greenbelt regulations for the satisfaction of the planning officer.
Just ask him,
Yes.
do we know what this is made of? What Something that they propose to demolish. Do we know what it's made of and what it looks like?
No, I'll be honest with you. I don't think there are any details of.
I mean, from Google Maps, it looks
Well,
pretty
it says
dilapidated to me.
Dilapidated as
I think
that's shed.
Yeah, I think it is a It doesn't have any, shall we say, historic merit.
Yeah.
But again, we might want to send that as a reference to make sure that there was no reason why the barn shouldn't be demolished. Okay. Right, do I have any other? Councillor?
I just need to declare an interest. I know the people who are applying, so I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Yates?
Yeah, it is what looks to be a very, shall we say, euphemistically, a very tired building, and it looks like it's got asbestos. It could be corrugated iron, but it looks as if it's got an asbestos roof on it, and it's certainly got holes in it. Like a number of applications, I always wonder whether people sort of have an idea in their mind on where they want to be and apply for little bits at a time, as opposed to one big chunk. It's probably easy to get it through little bits at a time, like the previous one, which we looked at. It's a shame they're changing the driveway, because it looks like an absolute pocket arboretum, to be honest. It's a gorgeous plantation which they're going to put a road through. So I would expect with some comment with regards to biodiversity and BNG. It does look like a substantial change through a very nice piece of land, but yeah.
I think the original driveway, which came close to the boundary, I think actually took down more trees. They're weaving in between trees, I believe. I can try and find, I can pull up the drawings from the previous application if you think that's relevant.
No.
So as you can see, looking at here, there have been a number of historic applications on this site.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Any TPOs?
The TPOs, I couldn't find any TPOs. Let's have a quick
Think so.
Let's put a protected. Yeah, protected trees are already marked on there, aren't they? So yes, so it's not showing any protected trees in that location. Okay. So as I say, the arboriculture report identifies those trees that need taking down. Most of them are weed trees like elder. There's only 4 trees that need to be taken down, one of those is dead. So it's fairly comprehensive, and I think it's fairly clearly demonstrates a significant increase in biodiversity net gain. So as I say, recommendation is to send it through with no adverse comments, but recommending that all the ecological wildlife surveys recommendations be implemented along with the BNG enhancements, and of course reference it to compliance with Greenbelt regulations. Can I have a second for that? You Councillor Yates, a show of hands for those. I think that's unanimous. Okay, moving on to what is the final one for tonight. SMDC 2026. Should be a fairly straightforward one, hopefully. Right. So, this is Mr. Roger Tyree of Hurstvale Cottage Grange Road, Biddulph. The proposal is for one shepherd's hut to be installed and an existing outbuilding to be converted into a shower unit with a compostable toilet. Change of use required from agriculture. There's no pre-application advice. It is in the Greenbelt, as one can see on the map here. They're stating that BNG isn't applicable, stating the de minimis exemption. However, they have provided, because they believe that the BNG requirement is uncertain, they have to provide details for habitat enhancement in the plans that they've provided. As I say, it's a installation of one shepherd's hut to be used as a holiday let, repurposing the existing timber equestrian servicing and supply shed to provide a shower and toilet facilities. Materials, the shepherd's hut is a standard green corrugated steel side with window and door, black corrugated sheet roof, similar to those we've seen in other locations around the town, in the Biddulph Moor, for example. The outbuilding is currently a timber panel construction with a corrugated steel roof. Nothing's being changed at the external appearance. It's simply internal repurposing. As I said, the BNG requirement is uncertain, so they've proposed some habitat enhancement details. I believe it impacts enterprise and tourism development, as it's providing a holiday let to bring people into the town. It's sustainable drainage. I believe it complies with sustainable drainage. On that, it's the water from the shower is collecting into a grey water tank, which will then be pumped away. And the toilet is a composting toilet, therefore there's no drainage on that. As I say, the enterprise and tourism is going to allow overnight visitors, which we all know spend a significant amount more in the town than day visitors. In terms of DES 1, it's a standard design shepherd's hut, so I think that would comply with DES 1. There are no, however, details of the parking arrangements for the visitors on the plans, which I shall try and pull up the appropriate plan there. This is the plan that they give us. Shepherd's hut there, composting toilet and shower over here. It's part of what I think a diversification of what is existing riding stables. So the recommendation would be, I would suggest to recommend approval in terms of its bringing tourism into the town, but on the condition that implementation of the proposed habitat enhancements and provision of details for the visitor car parking to comply with DES 2, and obviously subject to compliance with Greenbelt regulations and restrictions. I've got Councillor Jones with his hand up, Councillor Jones, and then Councillor Hawley. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I would go along with what you said, Chair. I'd be surprised if there's any parking issues, quite frankly.
I don't think there will be.
There must be ample parking for the stables, I would have thought. And yeah, I agree what you say about tourism. We should encourage tourism. And it does have precedence. I mean, I was involved with one a couple of years back at Philipmore. And, you know, you can't argue, but Shepherd's Huts, you know, years ago, they were in near enough every field. So aesthetically, they look all right. And as long as the drainage issues have been sorted out, the access issues have been sorted out, it's tourism, it's enterprise. We're encouraging enterprise and tourism. NAC.
Thank you.
Really, just to back up what Councillor Jones has just said, back to we do need more tourist accommodation in the area, and it's complying with that. And as Councillor Jones said, that we had the one on Biddulph Moor, which eventually we got through, and that was on Greenbelt as well. And yeah, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't, and I'll go along with yes, certain conditions need to be applied, and so
I believe
approving with conditions. Yeah,
I believe rather than sending it with no adverse comments, I think recommending approval, because I think as a town we should be encouraging the development of tourism, and we have a precedent set previously for almost exactly the same in a different location in the surrounding rural areas. Does anyone else want to speak on this, or can we go straight to a vote? Or can I'm proposing for approval with the conditions. Are we happy? Do we have a second for that? Councillor Hawley, can I have a show of hands, please, for that? Again, I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, so moving on to consider the applications received since the last agenda created. I think those effectively we've dealt with, because while they came in late, they made it agenda. Decisions received, I think looking at the applications we've got, I don't think there are any where the district council has violently gone against what we were suggesting. I think there was one we were suggesting refusal, and they have refused. A couple of Greenbelt ones that we were requiring compliance with Greenbelt that have been approved. But I think we were contesting those just work ensuring they didn't comply. So I'm thinking the only one is the 100 Congleton Road, which has been refused, and we were concerned about that, I think. Yes. Councillor Yates, Councillor Smith, yes.
Yeah, the only comment I'll make is regarding the day nursery on Craig's side, which is fine. You know, it's extending his business, bringing employment, it offers a valuable service, and we commented on that, no problem at all. But we did raise issues regarding road safety, and we expected them to be taken forward. I have had numerous representation recently regarding road safety, parking issues, people dropping off, constrained roads. You know, they really need to be paying attention and putting these mitigation factors in, because it wouldn't have been difficult as part of that planning to put some kind of requirement to put a couple of speed bumps there to slow people down, you know, because you know what it's like dropping kids off. It's the biggest priority in the world, and whoosh they go.
So in reference to that, do you want us to contact? Do you think we should be contacting the district council?
I think we should be contacting
the query whether or not the road safety issues were
absolutely
okay. So
because we do need to take that forward with the county council, because it is an issue which isn't going to go away. It's a residential area which now has double the number of cars because of drop-offs on a very constrained street.
Okay, right. Conscious of time, obviously. So
I've finished.
Okay, thank you. So, would you like, so are you happy if we ask the officers to request information from the district council?
Consideration was put to the road.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the decision report. Should we look at the decision report?
Shall we look at the decision report and then decide if we?
Yes. Okay.
With that.
Okay. Are you happy? That if we take this away, look at the decision report, see if there's information in that. If there's no information in that,
There's nothing on the.
there's nothing on ours, no.
Yeah.
But the actual report on the website may give us more information.
Right, okay.
Okay. So we'll take that one away to look at. Since anything, if there's no reference to it, then we'll come back to them. Okay. I've got Councillor Smith and I've got Councillor Lawton, the Mayor, to come back in a moment as well.
Just a comment on the SMD 2025-0238, which is the second to last one.
The last one.
Oh, it might be the last one actually. Just a query really on interpretation, because I wasn't here at the last planning committee, but it looks like it was discussed that it was the feeling of this committee that it didn't comply with DES 1 and DES 2. And I'm just wondering about our interpretation versus the district's interpretation in that respect of the neighbourhood plan conditions, and just how we can maybe look at it as a bit of a case study to see how those have differed, because they've obviously thought it was fine.
A comment on here that the revised design was more in keeping with the surrounding properties. Oh no, that was our comment, wasn't it?
Yeah. So just for something, I'm thinking just as us to take away as a committee, you know, having a look at ones like this where we've kind of said, oh, we don't believe it complies with the neighbourhood plan, and they've gone, oh well, yes, it's fine. Might be good just to see where there's a difference in opinion.
Shall we take the same as we said for last, and we'll look at what's actually the details in the decision report, and then come back on that if we think there's a.
You can refer that to the working group.
Yes, I think yeah.
I think it's good because then it affects future decisions that we make, doesn't it?
I think we have both of these if we look at the decision report and then refer them back to the.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
I should like to refer back to the Craigside nursery.
Yeah.
Say I fully agree and support Councillor Yates's continuing concerns in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think at the time I think we were all concerned, which is why we raised it and said there was a recommendation that they consider that, and we'll need to check whether they have, and if they haven't, then we'll query that. Okay, right. Thank you. So, any other points on any of the previous approvals or decisions? Before we move on to scroll all the way down to the bottom of this, to the appeal. Right, we have an appeal, which I need to find my documentation on. Right, okay, so you will have received in your pack the original recommendations for SND 2025-0374, which is the appeal that has been raised. Having looked at that and looked at the reason for refusal, I think we recommended refusal on the grounds that didn't comply with DES 2. There were concerns about INF 2, DES 1 and NE 2. And we were stating that it should be refused unless it was fully compliant with Greenbelt regulations, and the additional information was that we requested was provided in terms of boundary treatment, sustainable drainage, bin storage, additional car parking. And the grounds for the refusal was that it would result in inappropriate development of the green belt. It would use the same building, it would replace it with materially large, which I think the concern that we raised was well at the time. And therefore, the proposed development was due to design elements that would be at odds with the vernacular architecture and the rural character of the area. Having looked at the resubmission, the site plan on the appeal is exactly the same as it was. The design access statement is completely unchanged, so they don't address any of the issues that we identified in terms of lacking information on that in terms of urban edge and the like. So I would suggest that our decision would stand based on the information presented as it was at the original meeting. So, Councillor Hawley, you had.
I'm just going to say that basically nothing's changed as far as plans are concerned, and therefore I don't see any reason why we should change what we stated, and so just leave things as they are.
That would be my opinion on this. So, like any comment on that? Okay, so I think essentially, I don't think there's anything else we need to add to that. We leave it as our decision stood, and see how it goes through on the appeal. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the meeting. So at 6:29, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone.